Coming up today, the smog won't shift. A high level of air pollution continues to straddle most of Korea, but skies are forecast to clear before too long. South Korea and China hold rare talks on their overlapping exclusive economic zones in the West Sea, but negotiations are not expected to be plain sailing. Plus, French police arrest 2 men suspected of planning a terror attack on police and armed forces in central France. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, December 23rd here in Seoul. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, people with asthma and other respiratory issues are being advised to stay indoors and avoid strenuous exercise for at least another day, as large parts of Korea are still suffering from one of the worst smogs of the year. A mixture of pollution and dust particles from China has triggered the smog alert. Lee Soo-eun starts us off.
Heavy smog hit the Korean capital as fine dust from China floated downwind.
I wore a mask today because the fine dust made my nose stuffy and it was difficult to breathe, especially with my allergies.
My throat really hurts. I think I should have worn a mask. The air quality feels really bad today.
I coughed up phlegm all day because of my throat.
On Tuesday, the Korean Meteorological Administration issued an orange alert for air pollution, the second highest level for Seoul and the surrounding area in the provinces of Gangwon-do, Chungcheong-do, and Jeollabuk-do. In numbers, that means the concentration of fine dust exceeds 81 micrograms per cubic meter, more than 3 times the WHO standard of 25. The KMA expects similar levels for the capital on Wednesday as well, saying the smog won't disperse quickly without the rain that's expected in the morning down south.
Polluted air from China came into Korea on Tuesday, and more is expected on Wednesday, but the amount will be limited. The wind isn't expected to be very strong on either day, so the toxic air is hanging over the country, raising fine dust concentration levels.
The alert in Seoul came after Beijing issued its second red alert for smog over the weekend, though it's scheduled to end on Tuesday at midnight. While the alert is in place, experts recommend that people limit their outdoor activities and that people with respiratory issues stay indoors. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea and China have restarted talks to resolve their long-stalled sea boundaries dispute. The main sticking point between the two countries is a submerged reef in the West Sea. Gwangju has the details.
For the first time in 7 years, Korea and China held official talks on their overlapping exclusive economic zones in the West Sea. Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol and his Chinese counterpart Liu Jun-min led Tuesday's meeting in Seoul. Since Korea and China became members of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea back in 1996, the two have held 14 rounds of meetings through 2008 with no fruitful outcome. That's why the resumption, or rather elevation, of the latest talks to the vice minister level for the first time ever was a significant step in nudging things forward.
The official launch of the meeting today has historic significance. Like the saying goes, getting started is half the work.
And as Vice Minister Cho told reporters after the meeting, the talks were only successful in setting up future discussions. Seoul has so far demanded that the EEZ be demarcated by an equal median line from each country's coastline, while Beijing says the length of the coastline and the proportion of population has to be taken into account. Another major sticking point for the two countries has been their respective claims to Yeoudo Island, a submerged reef in the West Sea. In terms of distance, Yeoudo is closer to Korea's southernmost island, Marado, but China calls Korea's ocean research activities there illegal.
Maritime demarcation negotiations are very difficult. It's not a task that can be finalized in 1 or 2 goes. They are very technical, need legal revision and professional counsel.
This meeting that was held is the result of an agreement made during a summit between Presidents Park Geun-hye and Xi Jinping last year. Both sides view the issue as a key hurdle to overcome to maintain healthy bilateral relations for the long term. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Now, French security authorities have foiled an attack on police and the armed forces in the central city of Orleans. France's interior minister said Tuesday that 2 French nationals aged 20 and 24 were arrested last Saturday in connection to the alleged plot. The minister added that both men are believed to have been in contact with another French national currently thought to be in Syria. He did not elaborate on what kind of attack the suspects were planning. Now, the arrest comes some 6 weeks after gunmen from the so-called Islamic State group murdered 130 people in Paris. The minister added that security forces in France have foiled 10 terror plots this year alone. Iraqi security forces have advanced into the western city of Ramadi for a final push to retake and hold the city that they lost the Islamic State group back in May. According to officials in Baghdad, the government troops went into the center of the city from several fronts and began purging residential areas. On Sunday, Iraqi planes dropped leaflets urging civilians to evacuate within 72 hours, warning of an impending operation. Iraqi forces have been backed by US-led coalition airstrikes and also supported by the police, the army and Sunni tribes opposed to the jihadists. Staying with international news, and India has approved amendments to the country's juvenile law to allow suspects between the ages of 16 and 18 to be tried as adults for serious crimes. Under the new law, teenage offenders will be sentenced to at least 7 years in a young offenders institution if convicted of heinous crimes such as rape or murder. However, they will not face the death penalty or life imprisonment. The amendments were passed by India's upper house of parliament on Tuesday following a vote in the lower house in May. Now, the law change comes after the recent release of a minor convicted in a fatal gang rape. There was public outrage when the perpetrator walked free after serving only 3 years in prison, the maximum penalty because he was a few months away from turning 18 at the time. The new bill needs to be signed by the president before taking effect. Now, back here in Korea, and it took 7 years and hundreds of millions of dollars, but a massive project to renovate a major expressway between the southern cities of Daegu and Gwangju is finally complete. The expressway, once heavily congested and not all that safe, now has more lanes and it slashes travel times between the regional hubs. Shin Se-min has the details.
A new name for an expressway that connects the east and west of southern Korea, the Gwangju-Daegu Expressway. Before it was renovated and expanded from 2 to 4 lanes, it used to be known as the 88 Olympic Expressway. The national project to revamp of the roadways which link Gwangju of Jeollanam-do Province and Daegu of Gyeongsang-nam-do Province cost $1.8 billion. The result is a cut in time spent traveling between the two areas, dropping the drive from 2 hours 10 minutes to a little over 1.5 hours.
물류비 절감액만 매년 760억 원에 달할 거로 기대가 됩니다. 또한 부근의 순천, 완주, 통영, 대전 고속도로 등과 연계되는 4통 8달의 교통망을 구축함으로써 지역 경제에 큰 활력을 불어넣게 될 것입니다.
The expressway first opened in 1984 and was used not only to connect the Yeongnam region in the southeast and the Honam region in the southwest, but it also served as a way to mend political rifts between the two. But in 31 years of operation, the winding 2-lane expressway recorded some 770 lives lost in car accidents. Through 7 years of renovation, the expressway now has median crash barrier and safety facilities like slope and fog notification systems to help minimize possible crashes.
The Transport Ministry says there are also plans to implement a fast electronic toll system for the expressway by the year 2020 to offer further convenience to drivers. 신세민, Arirang News.
Now, North Korean defectors living in South Korea often complain that life in the South can be quite miserable for them. Many say they escaped a brutally repressive regime only to find themselves on the fringes of society and unable to make a decent living in their adopted home. But fortunately for them, times may be changing, as our Connie Kim reports.
Various economic data point out North Korean defectors are adjusting well to South Korea compared to before. According to the Unification Ministry in Seoul, the unemployment rate for North Korean defectors fell to an all-time low of 4.8% as of November. 4 years ago, it stood at 12%. This is slightly higher than South Korea's unemployment rate of 3.5% last year, but it still shows more defectors are finding jobs. Their employment rate rose to the 54% range this year, from less than 50% 4 years ago. Over the same period, the rate for North Korean defectors receiving basic living funds has been on a steady decline, from 47% to about a quarter this year. A Unification Ministry official cited a better job market as a reason for the progress, but also said that the quality of jobs defectors find could use some improvement. In addition, special bank accounts that aim to help defectors become economically independent are expected to help with their integration process. Some 28,000 North Koreans currently live in the south, with the majority residing in the capital city Seoul and outlying Gyeonggi-do province. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, the word cancer is enough to strike fear into anyone, and with most of us having been touched by it in some way, we know how devastating it can be. But with technology and treatments improving all the time, more patients in Korea are beating the big C. Oh Se-young has this report.
New figures show that more cancer patients in Korea are winning their battles against the deadly disease. A new report by the Health and Welfare Ministry shows the 5-year survival rate for cancer patients hit 69.4% in 2013. This means 7 in 10 patients are making it through 5 years, which equates to a de facto complete recovery. Patients with breast, thyroid and prostate cancer saw the highest survival rates, reaching over 90% on average. Based on the data, the phenomenal rates are due in part to advancements in early detection and overall healthier lifestyles.
For breast cancer, improvements in early detection have been effective, as well as enhanced treatments, including chemotherapy.
The number of newly diagnosed patients also dropped in 2013 from a year earlier. But compared to a decade ago, the number ballooned by almost 80%. In Korea, for every 100,000 people, roughly 285 were diagnosed with a type of cancer, exceeding the OECD average. The government says it's taking further steps to fight the disease.
We plan to link information systems among various cancer centers to compile a central database. This will help to develop effective policies. We also aim to broaden the scope for recommended screenings and improve hospice services for terminally ill patients.
In the meantime, the ministry is working on a 5-year blueprint for prevention, treatment, palliative care and international cooperation. The plan will be released early next year. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
And staying with health-related news, a team of local researchers have developed a new form of biotechnology that could broaden the number of ways to diagnose certain health conditions. And this could be music to the ears of people terrified of having a syringe poked in their arm. Kim Ji-yeon has this report.
Up until now, people had to visit the hospital for a checkup once or twice a year, using invasive methods such as getting stuck with a needle to draw blood for testing. But now new technology has been developed that has the potential to forever change current diagnosis methods to something less invasive but highly preventative by utilizing wearable devices equipped with nanobiodetectors.
A group of Korean scientists have developed a device that can analyze saliva, sweat, and tears and give users a general reading on their health. A research team from the Korea Institute of Science and Technology says it can tell if a user is getting ill and how severe their symptoms are progressing by measuring the increase or decrease of chemical substances in their body, such as glucose, cholesterol, and lactic acid. They came up with a core technology for the biosensors that will regularly detect and decipher the chemical substances.
The sensors are made up of electrically conducive materials that connect the enzyme to a carbon nanosensor. The greatest advantage of the technology is that it will enable us to minimize the amount of resistance between the two materials by using enzymes innocuous to humans and enabling them to wear it on their bodies every day.
The researcher says the sensors are best utilized when attached to wearable devices like watches and wristbands, and predicts it will take less than 5 years for the commercialization of the new technology. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Well, those are stories we've been following on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. We have plenty more information and news on our website. You can find that by going to arirang.com/news. Also, please download our smartphone application. You can just search for Arirang TV, and all the news from the last few weeks will be there. Have a great day. Goodbye.